companion, defender of the nerd faith, Lord Commander of the Nerds Watch, and we are the Just Us Nerds podcast, continuing our collaboration with the Hangin' With Web Show and HWWS Web TV for CyberCon 2020. And like Voltron, we are the super robot that is greater than the sum of its lion robot parts. So we're back for our next segment in our Power of Panel of Power. Although
Panel of Power.
Yeah, panel of power. Where we're interviewing legends in the comic book industry as well as some up and coming rising stars. So I have a special treat for us, Chris. Would you like to know what that is?
What is it? What is it?
How about because we had to cut our interview with Jim Fern short. How about a little bonus round with our good friend Jim Fern? Now making his streaming debut.
Yes, this isn't techno nerds, that's for sure. I'm not a
All right, so thank you again. We're glad we could get you back at least for a little bit, just for a bonus round. Just ask you a couple more questions that we didn't have a chance to get to. I didn't get a chance to ask you. I mean, you're originally from New York. Now with New York being the epicenter of the COVID-19 outbreak, has this affected you all, or family or friends?
I have a sister still and nieces and nephews and stuff, and I haven't heard anything about it. No, but a friend of mine, she's in the art business also, and her publishers are in New York, so everything's on hold. So nothing's happening with her. It's kind of strange, So I can imagine life is pretty much the same for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
New York is here. You can't travel really. My aunt, she passed away March 15th in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
My cousin, her son, just made it out before the lockdown in New Orleans. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Am I looking okay? I feel lopsided.
Yeah, no, you're great.
You're perfect.
It was great. It's perfect.
We're like a Wes Anderson movie. Everything's perfectly symmetrical.
Great.
Ish.
I just want to mention, no vanity here, but I'm 55 years old and this is my actual hair color. So still no gray.
I am going to be 42 years old, and this is none of my hair. So you got me beat, Jim. You got me beat. Thanks for rubbing it in.
Well, I didn't do that. Sorry.
So new question for you. So you mentioned that you have nieces and nephews.
Yeah. Yes.
What do they think about what you do? Are any of them into comic books? Are they ever like, Uncle Jim? Can you draw us Batman? Can you draw us Spider-Man? Is that?
Oh, when they were kids, yeah, absolutely. When they were kids, that's all I was doing, But and then they had kids. My oldest niece is 50. So
oh wow!
Like a daughter, I think she's 22, and another one who's 18. When they were kids, it was the same thing. But they're not into comic books. But yeah, when they were kids, they were like, "Can you draw me SpongeBob? Can you draw, whatever, The Simpsons?" So
yeah,
it's kind of fun. I have nobody in the family ever followed it the way I did. They never went into it the way I did. So, but there are a lot of artists in my family, which is odd. It's in the DNA.
Mm-hmm. I read in an interview that you've said this in a previous interview that you believe that talent is something that it's sort of innate, that it's not really something that I don't want to put words in your mouth. So I'm trying to, please correct me if I'm wrong about this, but that basically artistic talent is something that is innate. Is that to mean that you don't think it's something that can really be learned if you don't have it in your DNA, or what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I don't think you can. I think if it's in your DNA, you can find it and you can cultivate it. But if it's not there, it's not there. I've seen so many people who work at it and struggle at it and are determined, and it just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
and
I'm one of those people, unfortunately.
What's that?
I'm one of those people when it comes to artwork or something like that. I have an eye for it. I'm good, but no, my hands just don't want to cooperate.
But you're tall. I have natural hair color. Whatever, but you have the height,
so he's got that going for him, which is nice.
That's the world, likes tall people. I have to resort to drawing in order for people to appreciate it.
There was something that intrigued me when we were preparing for this interview, and I had asked you about it during the main segment that we had, but it was you had said something that really struck me when you wrote to me, is that those are the people that I wanted to be with. You were talking about the comic strip folks. Like, these are the people I wanted to emulate. These are my people. Not so much really the comic book people. So could you talk more about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there are different emotional elements to it. The comic strip people, even Charles Schultz, Charlie Brown. I got to meet him only once.
What was he like?
He was shy. He was really shy. It was almost like he had a protective wall around him with everybody. And then when he realized I wasn't, I was a professional. I wasn't a hanger-oner. I wasn't looking for autograph. Then he sort of warmed up to me. But it was very, and and there were a lot of people there. I think Craig Anderson was there. Craig Anderson, whose dad did the Marmaduke strip. He was an editor up at Marvel for a little while. He was there. So yeah, emotionally as a kid, there are two elements to me. I love film noir, like old movies and stuff. So with that, I found that appreciation in The Brave and the Bold, with Batman. There was more film noir in me. I wasn't a superhero guy. I was more of a realistic, gritty guy. And I saw that in The Brave and the Bold. And and then, of course, I like Superman. But I like humor. Like I said before, I have a funny bone that is always working. And I found that in the comic strips. So I'm less of the gnashing of teeth than I am, let's play for a laugh. I did something recently with a company that tanked called Big Tank. And you can check out my Facebook page. We did a book called Ninja Nannies. Chris Wozniak was the editor, if you know who Chris Wozniak.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, he kept coming around with this company. So it folded in November, but we started in June, and the writer was a novice comic book writer by the name of Tony Marie Legree. That's she lives in Montana with her family. She's on my Facebook page, so if you find me on Facebook, she's on there. She's a good writer, but she hadn't written comic books, and she likes the funny bone. So we turned Ninja Nannies from star-throwing, gun-toting women to like Get Smart. We did like a Charlie Angel's Get Smart.
Oh, that's great.
You asked me before about Jubilee. Well, I didn't have much input with Jubilee, but with Tony, we had input on these characters because it was ours from the ground up. It was Chris Wozniak's idea, but he loved where we were going. Like one of the heroes, a tall woman, named Harriet with blonde hair. She was big and awkward, and she had to go out one night disguised, but in a cocktail dress. But she had a lot of hair. She didn't know where to hide her weapons. So I said, let's give her a big, beehive hairdo. Let's tuck all the weapons in her hair. But let's not show it until she gets on the motorbike. She takes a helmet, and like in my frame here, she takes a helmet and puts it on her head. And until I pull back on the long shot, you don't see that the helmet's way up on top of her. And I did stuff like that. Like she's getting ready, and I have the camera pulls back, and you're waiting to see something sexy, but what you see is her clipping her toenails. So I like doing stuff like that, And Tony was hysterical over that, Like a woman, I'm like, hey, I'm making a woman laugh with, visuals with a woman cutting her toenail. I love it, and every now and then there's a part of me that I loved the Hulk at one point. Like every new character I found as a kid was my favorite character. Superman, then it was Batman, then it was Spider-Man, then the Hulk. So Lou Ferrigno was the Hulk by the time I really got into it. And if you look at my Wolverine cover with Jubilee, I did. John Romita Sr. laid out the cover, and I drew it. And my Wolverine had these huge balloon arms. And I'm looking at it, go, what was I thinking? So whenever I'm angry, I just draw more veins and more muscles, and I don't realize how, exaggerated they get.
Interesting how your mood affects how you draw it.
That's exactly right. So I'm thinking, if I'm drawing every time I did Werewolves of the Heartland, written by Bill Willingham. Everybody's blood, guts. Everybody's a werewolf getting naked and the whole bit, and that I go crazy. I'm running around the house, I'd rather do something funny so I could be funny and have my natural. So it's sort of like when I listen to music. It depends on what music it is. It puts me in the mood. It's the same thing when I'm drawing. If Like if you look at some of my Judge Dredd covers, these guys, their veins are busting because I know that's what I want to portray for that character. I don't want to do that all the time because then it affects me. Like a method actor, I'm a method artist, I guess. Anyway, that's pretty much. I'm not as interesting as J.M. DeMatteis. I'm glad you remembered I did, Dr. Fate. That was
that's what I'm saying is that I think that you probably have left a bigger imprint, than you realize.
I hope so. That's what it's all about. You in the list you gave us about fans and stuff. The one that sticks out with me the most was way back, like in the 80s. I used to do conventions on Long Island called the Icon Convention. And that's where I met John B. Seaman and all that. And Don Heck, my good friend, we'd hang out. And some of the guests couldn't make it to the convention. And some little kid came up to me and said, "Are you the Jim Fern that draws Spider-Man?" And I go, "Yeah." And I'm just walking around with Don Heck and that. And he goes, "Can you sign my book?" He said, "Finally, somebody worth meeting at this convention." And that stuck with me. I was like, because none of the other comic book art, So I was like, that's what I was doing it for. I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for the feeling that I got as a kid. I was trying to pay it back.
Right. And how full circle that must have been for you, because you've had we concluded the last interview by saying you've been able to meet all of your heroes in kind of roundabout ways, and so now to be on the other side of that, you're someone's hero and they're getting to meet you.
Oh yeah, I completely with JM what he was saying. How he tingled everybody. I never met Stan Lee, but Will Eisner I met. Jack Kirby I saw. Neil Adams was an influence to me also, his art. And the first time I met him was 1985. It was my first DC Comics Christmas party. Everybody was there. I can't even think of their names. All the older guys. Kaluta. I can't even think of their names right now. But when I met Neil Adams, I was just like, I was on top of it. It was like on top of the world, It's amazing. And even still today, like I said before, I got this job with Oliver Stone. I'm like, Oliver Stone, heck yeah, I'll take that. What's the pay? I don't care. I'll take it.
That's it.
It's not work for you because you're doing something that you love. And that's the greatest thing I think one can aspire to, is to find something that you love to do that can get paid for.
Yeah, well, that's one of your questions too. I'm not really in demand, like I used to be. The whole world's out there and there's so many people to pick. So I'm trying to be picky and choosy about what I take. And,
tell us about that.
Well, I got, like I said, first of all, my religious views, there's certain things I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
I don't mind a little violence when it's appropriate, but, and I don't want to get my mood. Like I said, I'm very influenced by the mood of the story or whatever the character is doing. I don't want to get in there because it gets into my head. Like JM talked about, the characters take on its own thing. Well, it's the same thing with drawing. The character takes on its own dimension when you're drawing it. And I try to stay away from it. I have one, so the Oliver Stone thing is fine because it's historical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I did Catholic things since I'm Catholic. I've always wanted to do Archie comics too, humor, lighthearted. So, so with the Ninja Nannies, me and Tony Marie Legree are trying to do more family-friendly stuff that we're going to post ourselves and have an online presence and to do a love of creating something that's fun, family-friendly. And I had one person recently ask me to do a project. He's a musician, and he's a musician who's open for Rolling Stone and stuff. And he asked me to do something called Who's from Hell. And I said, nah, I can't do that right now. Who's from Hell is not gonna work for me. And he didn't mind, so I get a lot of the oddball stuff.
I can understand that. I do, because I think if you're looking at it as this world, kind of what JM was talking about in our last interview, how we get sort of CNN'd to death. It's like just we're all constantly getting bombarded with bad news. Sometimes you want to just enjoy some escapism, and it's good to have a laugh. And honestly, I can completely understand that.
Well, we were doing, me and Tony with Chris Osniak, we're doing Ninja Nannies for Big Tank. and the owner didn't think it would sell. And yet everybody we were working with thought it was the best book out of the group of books we were doing. And I said, I was trying to convey that you create your own reality. Don't let anybody, like newcomers coming up, don't let anybody tell you what you can and can't do.
Mhm.
Right.
You make a mark, you make your niche, you create your own reality. Even if you got one viewer, you know, it's you touch that one person, and then it becomes infectious. You don't want to succumb to, you know, like, you know, back when I was doing Spider-Man, they told me do it the Romita way, do it the Romita way. And I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
And then McFarlane came in. I had Spider-Man with like these huge eyes and a little more exaggerated, and they said, no, you got to do it the Romita way. And then McFarlane came in and they gave him carte blanche. And like, you see, but yet eventually it wound up, you know, they weren't too happy with it not being the traditional way. But you have to, and then he created his own reality with Spawn. You have to create your own reality. You know,
And that's what they mean in the industry when they're talking about on model. Like you need to draw it on model. I've heard that term used a lot.
everything has a guideline, until they officially change it.
So how does any innovation happen then in the comic book industry? If everyone is kind of held to being on model, how
Right.
do you get to have like dramatic changes happen? How does that happen?
Well, you have those what if stories, those flagship stories, those off of the universe stories that they do. Or you have somebody who's a huge seller and they say, let's change the character. And they say, why not? It's dead in the water anyway, and you're a big seller. Let's revamp it. So there's all sorts of, scenarios that they think of. But that's why you have those offshoot books, the what ifs, what if the character was doing this?
Right.
And I don't know if they do that anymore. Remember the what if book? The what if?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Those are some of my favorite.
Yeah.
And
Now Marvel is doing, they're actually taking those what if stories and putting them to animation.
Oh, yeah.
So now they're taking a bunch of those and doing the what ifs.
Yeah. Well, I had Crossing Midnight, the thing I did with Mike Carey, that was up for option for Warner Verizon, like way back when. It never came to fruition. That's like the ideal thing.
Yeah.
When I worked with Jim Shooter briefly after he left Valiant, he had something called, he was part of something called Broadway Comics, which was owned by Lauren Michaels, who owns Broadway.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, and the whole thing was Lauren Michaels wanted a think tank for new property ideas, and that's what he was doing with Broadway Comics, and Jim Shooter was the head of that. And that's what everybody's doing today. So Lauren Michaels was pretty much ahead of the curve. This was 1995.
Yeah.
And now it's
one of the things I was going to say is about the what if stories is that I think those are one of the areas where you can take risks. We were talking about with JM about how is it that you kind of innovate in this industry, and I think the Elseworlds and what if stories allow you to take risks.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. And in what when I was in the early '80s or late '70s, it was the bizarre adventure stories, where you could take a character, and that's what got me really hooked on really wanting to do illustrated stories. Was like a Paul DeLacy, I forgot the title, what Ralph Macchio wrote. Macchio, I can't remember now who's who. It was a Black Widow story. I don't know. It wasn't called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but it was something like that.
Right.
And Paul DeLacy drew it. It was tone. It was black and white, and he patterned the heroes to look. One was Clint Eastwood, and I think the Black Widow was Catherine Harold, who was a big one on Rockford Files, and he even had Humphrey Bogart in there somewhere. I said, "That's how I want to draw comics. I want to do like the pseudo realism."
Yeah.
There's another artist who really got me. That he did a story called Nova for Epic, Spanish guy, and I connected with him on Facebook, just like one message, and that to me was a thrill. His name is Luis Garcia Mozos. And you look up Nova, Luis Garcia Mozos for Epic Comics. And, at the end of it, he did an Anthony Perkins staring at the camera just from, Psycho. And to me, that's how I want to do comics. That's the type of comic book guy I was, an illustrated story guy. And that's how you can take the risk, just the offshoot parallel universe, which, they do a lot of, I'm sure.
Well, Jim, this has been wonderful. We weren't expecting to get this little bit of extra time with you. So thank you so much for making yourself available. And this was a nice little bonus for for Chris and myself. So again, if you want to find Jim Fern, he is, like he said, Google the man's name. He is available on Facebook. And I can attest, Chris and I can attest that he is great at engagement with fans. And it's again, every time we get to speak, I learned something new, and it's kind of nice being able to take that trip back to yesteryear. So thank you so much, Jim, and we'll definitely have to do this again once we are more technologically proficient. Now that we cracked the code.
And I'd love to draw live next time. We'll set it up right. Thanks.
Oh, that'd be great. Love to do that.
I'm glad I hung in there because I almost shut it all down and walked away, but I'm persistent. Thanks. Well, thanks again, guys.
All right. Thank you. Take care, Jim. Bye-bye.
See you later.
That was unexpected, right? That was kind of cool. All right. So if you see me fumbling around here, this is another sign of my lack of adeptness. I'm texting. I'm literally texting. It's happening here in real time. So we are going to have our next guest coming up. The conclusion of the Just Us Nerds panel of power. So this is a actress that we've talked to before. It's been a while actually since we've come a long way, buddy, from recording in your kitchen. This was, I think, I want to say it's been 3 years since we last talked with this guest.
I think so. And if you give me a second, I'm trying to find it up on here.
No, I looked it up on our SoundCloud. So her name is Tatiana Diktar. I've kind of billed her before as she is the Lon Chaney Jr. of the geek nerd world, because she's been on a Superpower Beatdown, which is a very entertaining show. If you've never checked that out,
oh my God.
It's just all of the kind of fan service geek matchups.
Fan service to the max, 100%.
And the production values actually are pretty good. I mean, they're I would say better than some even Hollywood produced movies.
Yeah.
So she's done that and been on a show called. Have you ever watched Heroes with Issues?
Yeah.
You've watched Heroes with it's
like 1 or 2 episodes. Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's a psychologist, and he's talking with Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn,
what's going on with their lives and what they have to deal with.
Yeah. And it's just very, very entertaining, and it's amazing the range that Tatiana has managed to capture. So I feel like this would probably also be a good time to do a reminder for people watching. If you're enjoying the 2020 CyberCon, show some appreciation, right? Where can they where we want them to donate, Chris?
All right, man. So what you guys are going to do, I want to make sure that we have it up here. So one of the ones that we're actually doing, we have a GoFundMe right now for the Second Harvest Food Bank. Why don't you tell us what they're doing, buddy? What is Second Harvest doing? Why don't you tell me what they do?
I was trying to hand the baton to you, sir.
So you're doing what you're seeing. What they do is
they've been a provider. They've been a charity now in existence since 1971. I mean, a lot of people are hurting now with the COVID-19 crisis. You have some people, their incomes have just vanished overnight. And so people with there's no income, and they need extra help. And so we put up on our page, there's 2 charities. So there's the primary charity, which is the Center for Disaster Philanthropy.
Right. That is the Center for Disaster Philanthropy for COVID-19. So that is, you can click right on there. You can actually go to CyberCon 2020, and you can actually there's a way you sign up right there and be able to click on that.
Excellent. Just making arrangements for our next guest while we while we feel the air, so to speak.
Yes. What an awesome time this has been, hasn't it?
It has. It's like, are you tired at all? I'm like feeling, I'm feeling a little flush. I'm feeling a little, just, I'm getting the vapors. If that is
That
that,
was I got the vapors.
I got the vapors. I got the vapors. So,
Oh, that's fun.
so yeah, this has been just an amazing experience recording this. We get to kind of bring back some of our favorite guests. Talking with Jim Fern, such a nice guy. I mean, just such a sweet man.
So I want to tell. Can I tell my favorite Jim Fern story?
Please.
So when we first started this podcast, we were invited to our first con,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember being, I've always been to cons, but I've never been a like a panel or a table, and I'm like, oh God, this is a big thing for us. We have to do this. So we go to this con, and it's a smaller con. It was in Melbourne, Florida, and we're in the gym, and they put us in a table, and we're kind of shoved over in a corner. And we got our posters and our cool t-shirts, and and we're walking around, and of course nobody knows who we are. And so we go over, and I'm kind of dealing with the business aspect of it, talking to people, and Jay is running around talking to all of the artists and guests, and like, hey, can we get you for an interview? Hey, can you come and talk to us?
Please, sir, be on our show.
We're like, sir, please help us out. So, and one of the people that was there was the great Jim Fern.
Mm-hmm.
And from then on, being able to talk with him, like, I remember interviewing him, and it was like somebody we had known for 10 to 15 years. Just so sweet, so gracious, so
He's
nice.
very down to earth. Yeah, he's very down to earth.
And he was signing prints, and having that. And I remember he had a Jubilee one.
Mm-hmm.
Looking through some of his prints, one of the ones that he did in the 90s, he had done an Aquaman. And I'm a giant fan of Aquaman.
Oh, I know it, buddy. I mean, you are an aquaphile.
I am. And I remember him looking, and he goes, "You want the Aquaman?" I'm like, "Yes, please. Yes, please." Like that. And he signs it to me, and I'm like, "Okay, how much? How much?" And he looks at me and he goes, No. This is a gift." And I'm looking at him like, No. I need to give you money. And like, he's like, no. This is a gift. This is a gift. And right now in my comic book room, where I am now, I'm actually looking at it. I've had it framed. It is up on a prominent wall. It is literally on my main big wall.
Chris's Fortress of Solitude, if you will.
Yes, my Fortress of Solitude. And every time I look at it, I always think about his kindness. And every time we talk to him, you always find out something new. You had talked about, you'd called him the Forrest Gump of the comic book world.
Yes.
And it's like he was just talking about. He goes, "Oh yeah, and Jack Kirby was doing this while I was, he was like, oh yeah, I got to meet Charles Schultz." And I'm looking, I was like, oh my God. So
that I because the Peanuts, have been, that's a big part of a big part of a lot of people's histories. But yeah, he is he's an interesting guy, Jim. He's just had so much contact with so many people. It's incredible.
And then JM, I mean, we've had him multiple times on the show. He's always been so gracious to us. He's always been so good to us. He gives us little nuances, and he will actually give us,
Still listening to you, buddy.
Yeah, and he will give us those little tidbits and stuff like that. Like he's given a couple, world exclusives just on our podcast alone.
Yeah.
And he'll save those, and he'll be able to
or we like to think they're exclusive anyway.
No. He's even said
they're exclusive for us.
Yeah, I mean, if it's new to me, and then Tana. Having Tana Ford on the show, like I said before, is such a breath of fresh air. She is such a light.
She's a lot of fun.
She is a light in this world, and just being able to talk about what she's doing, and I love her passion and her persistence, and but she doesn't talk to, and none of our guests do. They all talk to us like we're friends. We're not, just some goofs with microphones who just want to talk to them. They're like, oh no, these guys are decent people, and being able to have these conversations. And so it's just been, I just want to say that I've been really blessed and really lucky with our podcast and what we've been able to accomplish. And we would love to have you guys listen to our previous podcasts. You can go on iTunes, you can go on SoundCloud, just type in Just Us Nerds Podcast. You'll see us there. We try to put up, a couple episodes and have you guys talk about it. Our normal episodes, I'm not gonna lie, they are kind of long, but that you can take them and listen.
More of us to love.
Yeah, there's tons. Believe me, there's tons to love. But we would love to have you guys, come on, sign up, and get a a like on the old Facebook, and add us as friends, because we always try to post new things that we find, comic book related, movie related, movie news, comic book news, action figures, any kind of toys, anything that comes up that we can find. Plus, another segment that we do on our show is we are Chris and Jay, Toy Bounty
Hunters.
And basically what that is it's a service that we provide. Is if there's something that you're looking for, a figure, a statue, whatever you're trying to find. I mean, as of right now, it's kind of, on a hold. But if there's something that you're looking for and you can't find, or, the scalpers are just raping you or reaping you across the coals, you can send us an email. It's justusnerdspc@gmail.com. Tell us what you're looking for. When this whole thing lifts up, trust me, there's going to be sales. We're going to be able to find stuff, and all you're going to do, you're going to pay, what we find it for, and you're just going to pay for shipping. That's what it is. We're just trying to find nerds to give them their tchotchkes. We're trying to from one nerd to another. We're trying to pass it on, so that way you guys get the deal. That way you guys can find it.
And incidentally, if you're in the Melbourne, Florida area, or even if you're not really in the Melbourne, Florida area, because this whole COVID-19 thing has kind of changed how we do business, check out our friends, Famous Faces and Funnies, who are located in Melbourne, Florida. They're open for business. They've modified their business. So what they're doing now
services right now.
Have you seen this?
They're doing delivery service. They're doing delivery. I haven't done it yet, but they're doing delivery services right now, and they're doing by mail order.
Yeah.
So they'll be able to send that out and be able to take care of it. Rick and his crew, they are always talk about people who are passionate about this comic book world, not just because they're making money off of it and it's their business. This is something that they love. And this is something that, like if you ask them in store, like, hey, what do you think about this? Oh, trust me, if not one of them is a fan, they will go find somebody who is a fan and be able to explain and point you in the right direction on what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And just in case you're wondering, it looks like our guest should be arriving soon.
Fantastic.
Awesome. I was worried we were I was worried there for a second. I was a little concerned. I actually used the Famous Faces and Funnies delivery service recently. And so I bought, and we can do a little what you're reading real quick before our guest joins us. I've been reading Exiles. So you familiar with Exiles?
Let's say I'm not, so that way you have to explain it.
Let's pretend as if you don't know. Exiles is it's a cross between X-Men and Quantum Leap. So it's sort of like if you took all of the different X-Men characters from different realities and they get plugged into the time stream at different places, and they are supposed to fix things that went wrong in that timeline, just kind of like Dr. Sam Beckett. So the original run I think was like back in the early 2000s, and it was made up of characters like Blink and Morph, who were new characters from the Age of Apocalypse storyline. Then the original team had someone that was Magneto's and Rogue's son, grown up as an adult, Nightcrawler, and Scarlet Witch's daughter called Nocturne, and so she looks like a female Nightcrawler. So yeah, I had started reading it. I had like the first like trade paperback, which like collected the first 5 issues, and I wanted to read more. And I'm wanting to support my local comic shops right now, so I actually called up Rick and I said, "Hey, do you have Rick's the owner of Famous Faces and Funnies?" I said, "Do you have more of these trade paperbacks in stock?" And he certainly did. So yeah, that's I totally endorse it. You know what?
Well,
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that's another thing about them too, is literally they have like a back warehouse that is nothing but back issues and figures. So it's a fantastic thing.
Well, what I was going to say is, when we take a short break, I'll see if we can get our technical difficulty, our technical boy, that sounded wrong. Technical difficulties sorted out, and then we'll conclude the Just Us Nerds panel of power with Miss Tatiana Dictar. Okay, we'll be right back.